Okay, back with another therapy session. I kind of, matter of fact, now that excuse me, now that I think about it, I got this, which I haven't been following him in a while, quite some time, but a very, as far as social interactions and operations, as not only just a community, but just as a person maneuvering in the world. Black Ram, that dude, very insightful guy. Honestly, I don't know. I think I was just getting bored with the content, but not to say that it wasn't good content. That's just, everybody's individualism or stuff like that. Um, but it is a therapy session to be able to get stuff off of your chest and not really have to worry about the instant rebuttaling that happens when you're having a conversation with someone, because we normally have been groomed to kind of like have conflict in the conversation. It's really it's never a solution here and a solution there, and let's put these two solutions together. You know what I mean? And I can't even say that, because it turns out that you'll find out that one, if not both, or if not all, the solutions are not working because of something that is really systemic, something that has already been put in place for it not to work, right? And that is something that I recognized when it was um, Up from Slavery from Booker T. Washington, and then, oh my gosh, I can't remember the book from W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm actually currently listening to it on Spotify, the audio book, and it's basically WEB kind of like being upset that Booker T. Washington is saying, okay, get your education, yes. Also, learn a trade, learn how to work with your hands, learning how to build and be engineers and things of that nature. And, WEB getting mad at Booker for, yeah, you're going to get these trades and yeah, you're going to get the education, but it also is going to have you working for white people, essentially, right? Which it ain't changed. Here we are, 2023, and we still working for white people. They're still the majority holder of big business, of conglomerate, of uh, um, captains of industry, things of that nature. And as far as like the so-called American Negro being a part of those entities, is like it's subservient roles, right? Like even if they do have a claim in a business in a certain genre of capitalism, it it gets drowned out by the surrounding so-called white capitalists that already have been here, as far as passing it down generationally, and even when it comes to like some newcomers, right? Um, so I say that to say, um, people in this racism uh, or racist uh, conversation, where they're complaining that over the world shut down due to the virus, that there were physical attacks being done on so-called Asian Americans or Chinese Americans, Asian Americans, things of that nature, and they automatically within that time called for a hate crime bill towards Asian Americans, just like that, where Asian Americans are like they're a tether. Everybody who has came after the fact of destroying the civilizations and tribes of indigenous Americans, to the shipping, selling, and enslavement and free work from so-called African slaves. Everybody after that is an implant. Is a you know you're not from here. And it kind of seemed like every time that black people, so-called black people, black American people, descendants of slaves, were rising up and saying, "Hey, like, we deserve a spot here, we deserve a spot there, we deserve the things that we contributed to." Though we may not have contributed to the current laws that were put in place to actually enslave us and keep it a legal situation, we still were in the results of it, meaning that you still used our bodies and our minds in more ways than many, to complete your goal. And then every time, it just seems to me, I could be wrong, it's just something that I observed in my personal opinion, that every time that so-called black Americans spoke up about it and fought for it, more and more reasons for immigrants to be shipped over from their homeland to here and make here their home has been being done, even currently. So now, within the past, reparations for black folks have been in the talks since, we're talking since the abolishment of slavery. So we're talking about 1866, 1867, 1868, around that time, right after the Civil War, post-Civil War. But what social media has done has amped up the conversation, because anybody who is a scholar, anybody who is a novice, anybody who is educated in that realm, um, can get online and hold the conversation and speak their points and put out information that's documented. But there's always a pushback, right? And that's what I'm talking about. Like, when you're able to get your therapeutic vent and your therapeutic rant on. So you have a very selective group of so-called black Americans who are speaking on behalf pro reparations for descendants of slaves here in America, right? But it only gets um, accepted as a rant. It doesn't get accepted as a conversation, even amongst ourselves in the so-called black American community, especially the more of a movement from the Democratic political party to the Republican political party. And you're having conservative black Americans saying, no, slavery was a legal thing, so there's no need for reparations for that because it was legal. It wasn't illegal. Like, you normally sue for illegal practices, not legal practices, right? But those same black conservatives will leave out the other institutions that warrants a need for reparations or repairing for the so-called black American communities across the country. It's not a coincidence at all that you can jump from New York City, New York, to Los Angeles, California, make a straight line, a beeline from both cities, from coast to coast, and see the same exact situations happening. Single parent households, high crime rates in the community, high prison inmate percentages from those communities. It's not a coincidence. That's for for a pattern to happen that distinctly, there has to be something put in place that allows it. It's really not rocket science at all. Even so much that when you display this information to young adults and young kids, and you give it to them in the form of, here's the documentation, here's what happened, and they form their own thoughts and opinions on it, and it's very similar. What happens is that so-called black Americans who think more conservatively, they want you to keep up the narrative of, that's in the past, get over it, it's over now, you weren't a slave, your parents weren't slaves, your white counterparts of the same generations aren't slave owners, and not every white person in America was a slave owner, and things of that nature. And those are very true statements, extremely true. However, when it came to the system of so-called white Americans, it didn't matter if you were a slave owner or not. It didn't matter if you had a plantation or not. What mattered was what was allowed. And what was allowed was a culture to be created from the enslavement of so-called American blacks or African Americans or so-called Negroes, whatever the case may be. It was allowed from the uneducated white folks who you normally see, like if you take a look out in our country, you could just hear the stupidity in their conversations. Here it is, Kim Kardashian, Paris Hilton, two highly educated women, two highly socially esteemed people. When they open their mouth, they sound dumb. They sound dumb. I don't know too many of the white men in that same realm because they really didn't put the white men out in that realm. The white men kind of just collected off of the shows and off of the projections of that type of material. So so made me lose my train of thought. Got distracted. My bad. So let me get myself together. I'm sorry. Give me a second. Be patient with me. Be patient. So like I was saying, like when you saw people of high esteem, socially, at least like financially, these are wealthy, rich people, heiresses and heirs of different like major streams of money being made, capital being made. When they open their mouth, they sound dumb. They sound very stupid. They don't really have a sense of information when it deals with like the common person, which is kind of strange because your money shouldn't determine how out of touch you are with just humanity. But apparently that's a normal thing for high society. But these are supposed to be people who are highly educated. They come out of the best colleges. They get their degrees. Their parents are either entertainers that are also educated, um, you know, uh, bachelors, masters, PhDs, doctorates, things of that nature, right? And they still open their mouth and they sound stupid. It's almost like watching that show, The Big Bang Theory, and with the character Sheldon being like basically the highest IQ having amongst the rest of the cast members as far as his character, he still sounds dumb when he speaks because all his information in that character is about the information he's learned through college or all the information he computes in his mind, right? But when it comes to like just social norms, he's just oblivious to it. So you would expect somebody with a high IQ to kind of have more of a holder on humanity. You know what I mean? If I say things straight and direct to you, for it to be taken out of context, it can be, even when the context is right there in front of you, it still can be taken out of context. It's very simple to do. With people being vague and with people being straight and direct. And so now here's the conversation about racism. And black folks and white folks can't even get it straight with amongst each other. And that's because white folks can't get it right amongst themselves. So of course, if they're confused and they're the creators of this social norm of racism, then when it trickles down to the people who you're talking about or talking with about it, of course they're going to be confused too. So now even in our community, we say, oh, well, black people can be racist because they don't like white people. Okay, great. That's wonderful. Right? But that sounds hella dumb because that's not in comparison to what the racists do from whites to blacks. The racism from whites to blacks can eradicate a whole township full of black folks. Racism from whites to blacks can get someone murdered and lynched because a white woman claimed that a black man raped her. Racism from whites to blacks can get people hung, murdered, fired, ostracized, demonized. But it's not the same in a reversal role if it's racism from blacks to whites. It's not the same. It's a total 180. You see things kind of like changing and having nuances now within the past, 15, 20 years, but nonetheless, it's still kind of the same. Like there is no a white man raped a black woman and then black people, black men, mob up and go get that white dude, pull him out his house, beat the fuck out of him, tie him up to the back of a pickup truck and drive around the town or the community, the neighborhood with that nigga dragging on the road while they drive. There is no comparison to that. So here it is, people that are educated and understand about documented situations. So you're talking about, now this is police on black. How many police shootings on unarmed black men, police killings on unarmed black men? How many? Just to say, oh no, that's not racism. What do you mean that's not racism? When you're automatically suspicious, oh no, that's not racism, it's prejudice. Okay, you're prejudging because of his race, gender. What are you prejudging him on? The location of the situation happening or the event happening? What are you prejudging someone on? And you're prejudging people based on race. It just is what it is. It's either colorism, it's either the person's sex, it's either the person's age, where the person's community, their environment, the demographic. You're prejudging based on those, what are they, archetypes, I guess you would call. I think they're archetypes. I could be using that word. But nonetheless, it's not the same. Me not liking a white person or me knowing that a white person raped, a woman that I know. I can't mob up with a whole bunch of other black men out the community, get that man and beat him to death, murder him, and then get away scot-free with it. That's different. So you're talking about the police things, but what about the civilian things? Okay, so the Ahmaud Arbery case, those men were convicted. Okay, cool. Rightfully deserved. But the conviction doesn't come down to the juror itself or the jury itself. It comes from the what do you call that? The DA, the district attorney. The district attorney determines how strong of this case that you're going to make and prosecute. The DA looks over cases and kind of gives it a thumbs up, a thumbs down on how hard or how soft they're going to land the blow for the case. They're the ones that pressure the judicial system, judges, police officers, detectives, and then it just trickles down the line on, putting the pressure on, right? To get something, to get a conviction out of a certain case. First of all, that Ahmaud Arbery killing, if they would have let those 3 white dudes go, it would have been tumultuous. Oh my gosh, it would have been tumultuous. Like, you actually have video surveillance of 3 guys in pickup trucks rounding this black guy up, and then him trying to fight and defend himself, which was kind of stupid but understandable, because in that case, in that event, you don't know really what to do. Fight or flight are really your 2 options, right? Or surrender. And then when you know historical events that have happened in this country, even a surrender doesn't mean that you're going to come out that situation alive. So being in that event and being through that experience doesn't necessarily give you the right answer on what you're going to do. You're just going to respond one way or another. One way or another, you're going to respond. And it could be the total right decision and still have the wrong outcome. And there was a conviction made in that case, rightfully so. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, they even tried to, I forget the process, they tried to appeal, or at least one of them tried to appeal the conviction. And I want to say it got turned down, rightfully so, right? But now here you have a situation where it's a young kid, it's a 14-year-old kid. It's a 14-year-old black kid with what appears to be a rifle in his hand in the middle of a park in his community. And the police officers drive up and automatically jump out the car and kill the little kid. They killed Tamir Rice. Not a negotiation, not you know, first of all, when you run up on somebody and you start yelling, your mind has to process the information from the tone of the voice, from what they're actually saying, from the person who's actually saying it. Like your brain is going through a million things at once. So even if you do hear, get down, freeze, freeze, get down, freeze, like for a minute, you got to find out, hold on, what the heck is going on? And you don't have like the same, it's not like this young boy had military training or police training. He's just a little kid. And you unalive him, a little kid, of what appears because he has of what appears to be a weapon. Excuse me. So then you get the case of what's the kid's name? What's the George Zimmerman dude? Oh my gosh. Rest in peace, young man. I forgot your name. I got a brain fart on your name. Just that quick. When that white man killed that young boy, Trayvon Martin, rest your soul, brother. Trayvon Martin. All these gangster niggas, these P. Diddy's or that niggas talk about on the internet that they scared of, these niggas ain't round up and go get Zimmerman. Excuse me. These gangsters, these Bloods, these Crips, these GDs, these Spice Lords, all these so-called, you know, Negroes and gangs, they didn't suit up, they didn't flag up and go get Zimmerman and pull that nigga the fuck. Man, come on, man. I forget where the murder happened, but to think that there aren't any gang members anywhere near the vicinity of where Trayvon Martin was murdered, man, shoot, at least like 10, 15 minutes away. Niggas ain't suit up and go get Zimmerman and pull him out his shit, tie him up to the back of a vehicle, and drag his ass, and niggas take target practice. Niggas ain't do that. Which was very much deserved of Zimmerman. I'm not even gonna slide you. He gets to kill a dude walking home with a tea and some Skittles. And then after he does that, goes to trial, gets away scot-free. He gets to go on signing tours where he's signing bags of Skittles and whatever brand of iced tea that Trayvon Martin had on his person while he was killed. So no, there is no black on white racism. You can say you hate white folks all day long till you blue, till you die, but it's not the same. It is not the same. There's not a system built behind us. Hey, when I was just mentioning about the Chinese getting that hate crime bill, black folks still don't have a hate crime bill yet. Still. There should have been a retaliation to all those cops. There should have been a retaliation from those cops who beat the shit out of Rodney King. It should have been a retaliation. It should have been a retaliation, man, from the black community to show, okay, this is what y'all want to do. And it took the Black Panther Party, it took the NOI movement, right? And it still was on the defensive. It wasn't on a, oh, you did this to our brother. We're not going to come out here and now ravish your community because you did that. We're not going to come to where you live and go through your homes and set them bitches on fire. And whatever survived, we're going to take it and keep its memorabilia and shit like that. It was still on the defensive. And those places and those organizations still got crumbled under the weight of white America. So, yo, there's a lot more. I mean, this video can go on forever. Right, and I haven't even really stated any documented facts other than the couple of murders that I mentioned of the young boy Tamir Rice, who was a teenager, and Trayvon Martin, who was also a teenager. There's plenty more documented, and this is crazy. But for our own so-called Negroes to say slavery, we don't deserve reparations for slavery, totally get to ignore, unequivocally get to ignore the fact that there's way more other things than slavery that we need reparations for. So much so that there was a whole political push with Patrick Moynihan and another brother. I forget what his name is. Because I'm not too studious. I listen to a lot of things, and I'm not the best scholar in the world. I'm quite lazy. I'm not going to be honest. I just take information that I know and I remember, and it affects me. It really does. It affects me. It affects me a lot because I see my cousins, I see my father, I see my grandfather, I see my uncles, I see myself, I see my sons. I see young men and young women in the communities across the country and the different things that we go through due to the fact that we're psychologically fucked from racism, man. Granted, I don't want to be the people who retaliate like that and slaughter a whole town of motherfuckers and burn up their shit because of what someone did. Get the individual who caused the issue, who did the violation, you'll get that motherfucker. But to tear down a whole community because of that one individual or a couple individuals or a small group, it's ridiculous. But I get it because you kind of do that in a war situation, and that's what it always was. It was a war with black men. It was a war with black people from white people, and that's the racism. I get people that say, hey man, they're not all like that. Okay, cool. I'm not asking for them to be all or not. It doesn't really matter to me. But if it was really something, if they were not all like that, why aren't they pushing for the repairing of black communities the way that Patrick Moynihan was trying to push for? Even if he was just doing it in word. He had great points. If y'all are unfamiliar with Patrick Moynihan, take your time to look at some of the things that he was saying and judge it for yourself. I actually respect the fact that he opened up his mouth and said something, but initially what ended up happening, we're not hearing what the fuck you're saying, even when you're white. He's a white person talking to other white people in political spaces and powers, and the political spaces and powers are like, we'll find something else to do. We'll get them jobs. Yo, this is Mega out, man. Peace.